My name is Matt Davies. I'm a researcher at the University of Glasgow. My background is in researching fire behaviour and fire ecology, and I'm particularly interested in post-fire ecosystem restoration and the linkages between fire behaviour, fire severity and ecosystem response. My organisation is mainly reactive. So when events occur, that tends to provide us with funding opportunities for research. I think one of the big challenges we face is in convincing funders and policymakers that we need to be given the opportunities to work more on the research that's required for mitigation and for scenario modelling, rather than just figuring out how to deal with situations after they've occurred. A good example of that is the last big series of disturbances we faced were in 2011 in the UK, when there was a large series of wildfires associated with a very hot, dry spring. As researchers, that gave us a wonderful opportunity because there were particularly severe fires with all the kinds of problems that we get in our ecosystem, where we have peat soils, shrub fuels. The peat fires that are associated with the really severe fires in our ecosystems are particularly damaging, big implications for carbon cycling, for ecosystems, for biodiversity and so on and so forth. So we got funding out of that, so that's great for us, but not so great for the ecosystem. It would be much better, as well as understanding how to deal with those events, if we could understand how to prevent them in the first place. So the uncertainties for us really centre around the ways in which we can get good forecasts and predictions of potential variation in fire severity, in how we can model scenarios of fire spread across landscapes, and how we can understand how management, and that might involve prescribed burning, but it might also involve a more integrated approach to fuel management that could draw on lessons from ecosystem restoration to change fuels and ecosystems. So, for example, transferring from flammable shrubland ecosystems to less flammable broadleaf woodlands to create belts and control zones within the landscape at critical points. So bringing those lessons together, mapping how fires spread across landscape, how fire severity and fire intensity reacts to variation in landscape scale fuel structure would be something that would be, I would be very interested in working on. The other big challenge and the other big uncertainty we have is in predicting the potential for fires. And there, the particular challenge is understanding seasonal and daily diurnal fluctuations in fuel moisture content and fuel flammability. The real benefits that I see from the FRISK risk assessment system is the potential for the transfer of knowledge throughout Europe. We know that a lot of the challenges that we face are faced by colleagues in other northern European countries, so Danish, Norwegian, Irish heathland ecosystems, but the lessons are also there to be learned from other shrubland ecosystems, from other ecosystems more generally across the Mediterranean. There's huge experience in fire modelling and fuel assessment and fuel modelling that could be directly applied to our situation. I think the benefit of FRISK is that it provides resilience to a community that in our case, in the UK, is currently fragmented, disjointed, in some cases rather competitive with one another, and certainly all scrabbling around for rather small pots of money, and trying to convince policymakers that that's the direction in which we need to go. So FRISK provides us with the opportunity to demonstrate need, to demonstrate that we're not completely crazy, that there are other people thinking along similar lines to us, but also that there's a huge amount of research within Europe and more widely that we can tap into to help fill the knowledge gaps that we've got. We've already seen that in the UK to an extent with our fire services collaborating with people in Spain to get training in prescribed burning and wildland firefighting. There's been collaboration in the past on research through programs like Fire Paradox and EU Fire Lab, but some of those programs, particularly the research ones, have come and gone. The benefit of FRISK as a collaborative, informal network is that it can coordinate communication between individuals, and it maintains those channels of communication in between the natural cycles between the boom and bust that is research funding. And also, it's heartening to see that the key message that we are trying to get across in the UK, that even where you're wanting to manage an ecosystem, perhaps to have a very long fire regime, or perhaps to try and move away from these cultural landscapes towards natural woodlands, that actually the absence of fire requires fire management in itself. And sometimes that means that the absence of fire requires fire, or at least requires a considered ecological, joined-up approach to managing fuel landscapes. So I really look forward to remaining part of FRISK in the future, and I think there's great potential for us to make some good progress.